What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Games with R&D podcast. My name's Garrett Anderson, and this is episode 7. With me, as always, we have Dan Taxon.
Fantastic.
And then we have Roberto.
Hello.
Yeah, so it is May 6th of this recording. A lot of fun things have happened. It was my birthday on the 4th.
Hey, man, happy birthday.
Yeah, happy belated birthday,
Yeah.
buddy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was really great. I got a hamburger for my birthday from my beautiful wife. She treated me to a Mike's at the Crossroads hamburger. If you're not local, that's a really good hamburger joint down in Katati. It's the best hamburger in Sonoma County. They've won all kinds of awards. Absolutely delicious. I go with the Nauvoo burger, which is like this blue cheeseburger with bacon, and they give you a side of your choice. I always choose the Mac salad. It's like pink. I don't know what they put in it, but it's absolutely delicious. So that's what I did.
Nice.
And I hung out with my son. It was pretty chill. Then we had Cinco de Mayo, and that just means lots of beer. So with my birthday and then Cinco de Mayo backing up, I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty hungover. I feel like my body is just deteriorating as we speak.
Yeah, that's a recipe
if I
for
fall
a really
apart,
good time.
It's crazy. So what have you guys been doing? Talk to me. Besides games, before we just jump into what we've been playing, and our big topic, which I should actually add, our topic for this week is handheld gaming versus your traditional gaming. So we're going to be talking about handheld consoles versus your traditional sit down and play on a couch scenario. So that's going to be our main subject. Of course, we're going to be talking about what we've been playing, but I just kind of want to just chill and shoot the breeze, because this quarantine thing now has been going on 7 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
Things are starting to get weird for me personally. So what have you guys just been doing?
So
let's just start with Roberto or Dan. I don't care who. Just somebody go.
Rochambeau. It's super strange. Cinco de Mayo happened. Of course, I had to drink some tequila because it was awesome. And the only tequila worth getting is Don Julio tequila, and it is so good. It goes down so smooth. And if you do that, the only way I will ever say that it is okay to drink and drive is when you're playing Forza on the Xbox. So, yes,
I'll give you Forza, but I'll also add.
Okay. So yeah, Mario Kart is also really fun too. Okay, so that's good. I'll give you that one, Roberto. So yes, have some tequila, play some Forza or Mario Kart. Drink and drive. You fall off Rainbow Road. Who cares? You're just having a good time. You're having a good time.
Pretty much.
Right? And then you start coming up with all these funny things, and then you throw blue shells at whoever, whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm in first place. Let me throw my blue shell. Okay. Which is possible because you could save it when you're in last place, get to first place, and then throw it, and then hit yourself. So, playing. That's pretty much kind of what I did. I played a little bit of Forza for the Cinco de Mayo with some tequila.
Nice.
Yeah, it was super fun because getting online and talking trash while you're drunk to a bunch of other people that you have no idea who they are, they start laughing. And I was driving a Beetle. Okay.
Oh, good.
And everybody else was driving souped up supercars, Bugattis, Ferraris, all these Huracans and shit, Lamborghinis. And I was talking shit. I was like, yeah, man, this Beetle is going to kick your ass. Don't you remember Herbie? And so we're going. And at one point in the race, there was a bunch of people and they were behind me intentionally. Okay. And they were letting me win. I was in first place this entire race, the first 2 laps. Okay. We get to the 3rd lap and I'm sitting here and of course I'm pretty toasty and I'm just talking trash to these guys, right? Yeah, that's right, man. You're Italian trash. Your cars ain't gonna do anything against my superior German engineering. Now, remember, I'm Hispanic, I'm Mexican, so I'm just like, Beatles are awesome, man, right? So I'm just talking shit. We get about to the last straightaway right before the end of the race, the checkered flag, and everybody just zooms by me, and I'm just like, hey guys, where you going, man? I want some pizza too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was super awesome.
Yeah. That does sound like a lot of fun.
You should try it sometime.
It's funny with me and tequila, any sort of liquor, always I feel terrible the next day. I just cannot, and I guess I could pace myself, but I mean, what's the point of that? That's just no fun. Why not just get into a completely, drunken stamble and have a bunch? I'm more of a beer guy, what can I say? But that's cool. That sounds like a good time. What have you been up to, Roberto, besides what you've been playing?
Just work.
I'm sorry.
I swapped to mornings because they needed help,
right?
And I was bored in the afternoons. Didn't want to deal with the whole thing, so that's why I swapped in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
My department opened up now, so they've been kind of messing with my schedule a lot, which I'm not a big fan of.
Right.
But it finally got straightened out, and I'm still in the mornings and that kind of thing. Gonna be the downer today, so.
Oh yeah, man. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Yeah, I ended up taking the second leave of absence. They were just still allowing it. They extended it out, and they were like, "Yo, do you want to take another leave of absence?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? If I don't have to be here and I can afford not to be here, why would I be here?" So I took a leave of absence, and I'll be out till June 1st.
God damn.
I'm coming back, I believe. So I get the whole month of May off, basically.
Nice.
Yeah, it doesn't affect the benefits or anything like that. So I've just been taking advantage of it. And basically what that's done is giving me a ton of time. I've been doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So, one of the big things I kind of did was, you guys know, but I don't believe our listeners probably know, I'm a huge comic book collector. I mean, if you think my Steam game is large, my Steam library is up to like 1,500 plus games. I have even more comic books. Right now, actually, the room I'm sitting in, I'm probably got around 25 different long boxes, but it used to be even bigger than that. I had to put a bunch of them in the garage because the room I'm in now was kind of our little old guest room where I used to be in my room where my son is now, which is a lot larger. And that room I used to call my library. So huge, big collector of comic books. And I actually enjoy reading them physically. I've never really enjoyed reading them digitally until now. So one of the big things I did was I had some, experience using Comixology, and I tried that out. And for whatever reason, I just really wasn't into it. A lot of the stuff that's on Comixology Unlimited, I wasn't really enjoying. And I was just kind of like, I don't think that this is worth the monthly fee. So I opted out of that and then just went back to my old ways. But recently, I've been buying a lot of bundles on Humble Bundle. They offer, the complete Walking Dead series for $18 digitally. The complete series. Now, that series is now over. Robert Kirkman said he didn't want to do it anymore, and, why should he? Because he's a bazillionaire, because The Walking Dead is a huge freaking franchise now, and everything, right? And video games, television shows, all that. It's all over the place. So basically what I did was I bought a bunch of digital bundles, and how I'd been reading them previously was actually just on my PC through a application called Comic Rack, which is available on Windows, and it's probably available on Mac as well. And it's fine and everything, but you're still kind of tethered to your couch or your chair because it's on the PC, unless you have a laptop. But I seriously am never going to carry around a laptop. So I've just been enjoying them that way. But recently I was like, I should really just find out how to get these on my phone. So I downloaded iTunes onto my PC, and then I downloaded an app called Panels. And so I was able to figure out how to transfer all those digital comic bundles that I bought onto my phone. And so, long story short, I've been reading The Walking Dead. I binge read the shit out of it. I'm already on volume 9 in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Literally read it for hours the last couple days. And it's been fun because reading it in the evening times, my wife and I have also been rewatching the television series. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we kind of enjoy doing together because she really does enjoy the television show. And it's funny because the first time I watched this series, we never finished it, by the way. We only got to season 5. I think there's 9 seasons total. Right. At least right now. I don't know if it's a continuing series or if they've ended it or not. But anyway, I know there's at least 9 on Netflix right now. It's been fun reading the book alongside watching the television show and just checking out what they changed, what they didn't change. And so that's been a lot of fun, you know? So I've just been doing a lot of reading, a lot of chilling, watching TV.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it.
So how do you track your comic books?
How do I track them? You mean the physical ones or the digital ones?
No, your physical comic books that you have in all your long boxes that you have bagged and boarded.
Okay, so basically, yeah. So every single one of them are bagged and boarded. They're all alphabetized, and they're all separated by dividers. Okay, so I simply just go through A to Z based on comic.
Okay, name. But when you go to the store and you say you're missing, you know, a Fantastic Four issue 474, how do you know that you're missing that? Do you have any way of tracking which ones you need to get?
So I've been kind of weird. Even when I was collecting physical books, which I'm actually no longer doing, I put a stop to it when my son was born, about whatever that was, 19 months ago, because I just didn't simply have any more room for them. I never would really just walk into a store generally and buy single issues. If I was walking into a store, it would be to buy the trade paperbacks, meaning like a full volume, right? And so as far as the single issues go, the reason why I have so many is I'm kind of a flea market and yard sale junkie. Mm-hmm. And so how I would collect these things is literally I would just buy them in bulk from people. You know, like I'd walk up and, you know, at the flea market, we have one here at the Veterans Building in Santa Rosa, or we did before we were also all of a sudden allowed not to be around anybody. Before all that, right? You know, there would be something at the flea market every Sunday. And I'd walk up to a guy, and the guy would be selling his books for like, you know, like $1 a piece. And I would just overlap that. If I looked through and I saw like, you know, 5 or 6 that looked interesting to me, I would look at the guy and go, hey, how much do you want for this whole box? In a lot of cases, he would just say like $10 or like $20. And I'm looking, I'm like, well, there's 50 books in here. Sure, why not? And that's how I collected them. A lot of times I would find doubles. A lot of times I would find things I wasn't interested in. I've got a bunch of books that I'll never read again. And they're just sitting there in the garage. One day I'll go through them and sort them. Some of them are worth some money. I've gotten really lucky. My wife's client, she grooms dogs, but one time we went out to her place because she was having an estate sale, and she lived on this huge property, and she had a bunch of boys, and she's much older now, but you know, and her boys had made a fort into the barn's loft. And it was funny because there's a bunch of guys down here in this barn, and they're looking at all this farm equipment and checking out all these tools and stuff. And I noticed there was some drawings with like crayons, like on the wall of like Spider-Man and Hulk. And I'm like, hey, what's up there? What are the stairs up there? She said, oh, that's nothing. That's just where my kids used to hang out in the, you know, late 70s and early 80s. You know, they had a fort up there. And I was like, well, can I go up there? Is stuff for sale up there? And they're like, oh yeah, my son's moved out, you know, 30 years ago. She's hella old. So I go up there. Dude, I hit a fucking gold mine. I found all kinds of stuff. I found Green Arrow issue number 1. Right. I found issue number 1 of The Flash. I found all kinds of stuff. I've got individual comics that are worth over $100 by themselves easily, with the condition that they're in and everything. And it was the craziest experience. I remember walking up the stairs and looking through the books and just realizing, I was like, oh shit. I was like, this is the motherlode. The scary thing is too, is I walked down there and I asked the lady, I was like, hey, how much for these books? And she said something ridiculous, like $10. And it was like, there was 6 boxes, and every single one of those boxes was filled with something that was worth like, you know, and of course I didn't know that they were worth a lot, but I could tell just by looking at them, like, oh, this is like golden era stuff, you know? So I've got a lot of collectibles. But anyway, that's what I've been doing, converting my physical stuff to digital and reading a lot of The Walking Dead. So
well, I was going to say, there's an app that you could use to track your physical comic books that I use when I have my collection, which is really good because it'll tell you which one it has, shows you the cover, and then whichever one you don't have, you go to the store, you go wherever, cool. And then you're just like, oh, I don't have this one, and then you just pick it up and buy it, and then you add it right then and there. You can add the comic book by scanning the barcode, or you could just manually type it in.
Do you know the name?
Yeah, it's CLZ, 3 letters, letter C, letter L, letter Z Comics. You download it. You can get the paid version of it, which will give you access to more features, including an unlimited database for storing yours, because I think with the free version you can only catalog up to, I think, 150 to 200 comic books, which Any comic book will tell you.
Shit,
Yeah, any
nothing.
collector will tell you that's definitely not enough. So yeah, it's
crazy.
really cool because it'll show you even the variant covers that exist for that comic book.
Oh, neat. Yeah.
It'll show you all of them.
That's sweet. I'll have to check it out. CLZ.
Yeah. CLZ comic.
Well, that's it. That was kind of our shooting the breeze section. Let's just jump into what you've been playing. Hey, Roberto, what have you been playing?
So right now I've been staying away from FPSs for some apparent reason. They're not really catching my attention right now. And so I've swapped to tactics style games, and I'm playing Gears Tactics through Game Pass.
That's exactly what I've been playing. Okay, go ahead.
And I like the Gears series. I like the story that the universe that it revolves around, and so it was already going to try it out anyways. But when I found out, or when I started watching, like the first reveal of it, I'm like, oh, it looks like XCOM, and I like XCOM. It's definitely a little bit more simplistic, more forgiving. If one of your characters dies, they don't really die unless it's not an actual hero. It's just the I wouldn't say grunts, but the non-main characters. Those guys can actually die. But it feels like a Gears game. It sounds like a Gears game, so it's actually a Gears game. Even with some of the patterns that the enemies have, or their effects, they feel exactly like how they would be in the actual Gears games themselves. I'm not that far into it, but it's I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I've been also playing Gears Tactics. That was going to be the game that I was going to talk about today. So I was just going to also add a little bit to that. So, I think it's actually pretty courageous for Splash Damage. They're the ones who developed it in conjunction with the Coalition. This is kind of a far departure, right, from like the Gears of War series. Gears of War has always been like a third-person cover-based shooter. And so to go to a tactics style, it kind of makes sense, but it's also kind of risky, because there's a lot of hardcore Gears fans, and I am one, that really just love the third-person shooting and cover-based system that the other games have always had. And the turn-based tactics, that's not really a thing that's up my alley, but I also was really enjoying it to a point. I think I like it more than XCOM. I've also tried out XCOM, and it seems just different enough. I don't like the idea of permadeath, which is a thing that, XCOM has, right? Like you were saying, your guys die if they die. But because this has such a strong story to it, obviously they can't just kill off a lot of these players. I believe it's actually a prequel to the first game. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 12 years before the whole the incidents that happened on the first game.
Yeah, so I really like the history of Gears of War, as stupid as it sounds, because I know, the story can get very Daves of Our Lives-ish. It has a lot of drama going through it, but I find it actually pretty interesting, because I think you play mainly, or at least one of the main characters is the father of Gears 5's protagonist. Is that correct?
Kat.
I forget.
Yeah.
Kat. Yeah, so you play as her father, which is kind of neat to kind of see that and how they've all connected all the characters in this, one world. I got to say, though, one thing, I got to probably, I'd say, I probably have put in 6 to 7 hours. I don't know where you left off, but I started kind of just finding it there was pacing issues for me. Because Gears has always been this, super fast action-paced, huge explosions, huge set pieces, and everything. And with tactics, it's turn-based, right? So it's like you choose to move somewhere, the enemy choose to move somewhere. And that's just, it does look and sound like Gears, I'll tell you that, but it's not, right? Because it's I make a move, you make a move. I just kind of was starting to get bored. And I think that's just because I don't really like tactics games. I've tried multiple different ones. I've tried the XCOMs. and I've tried this, and it's hard for me to get into it. I do like the way that they give you a lot of options. I mean, so each player, you're looking at the field in this like isometric way, right? So instead of third person or first person, if you can imagine you're a bird and you are high in the air, you're looking down and you have that perspective. And that's how you can control your characters. And each one of these characters has about 3 turns. So you could choose to move, shoot, or do this thing called Overwatch, which basically creates this space on the battlefield that particular character will cover, meaning if the enemy moves in that space, they'll just return fire right away. And so I was able to kind of like figure out some good scenarios by moving it, but I found it kind of difficult. How are you going with like the difficulty? Because I was playing on the normal, and I was like, shit, I'm going down a lot. Like I was getting taken out quite a bit. Maybe it's because I'm an unexperienced tactics player, but I felt it kind of brutal, actually.
I mean, like I said, I've had history with XCOM, so I'm kind of used to these kind of style games.
Sure.
I'm also playing it on normal right now, just because I just want to get through the story itself.
Yeah.
But it's, at first it took me a little bit to get used to the style, but once I figured out what abilities I wanted to use on specific characters, because each character has a specific role that they can go through, but they also have different skill trees.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that menu system's intense, isn't it? It's intense.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's a pain when it comes to trying to change the equipment around.
Yes.
But when it came to the skill tree, I figured out how depending on who I was using or who was required on the mission.
Sure.
That's where I started getting an idea of like, okay, so if like for example, Gabe, who is Kat's dad, is a support. Like, okay, then in that case, I'm gonna give him extra healing grenades, a better radius for healing. If he executes somebody, everybody's gonna get an extra turn.
Right. You spec them out to your class. Yeah.
Well, not just that, but something that would help, the whole team. Because,
right.
For me, especially with my my knowledge of how to, when it comes to not just XCOM, but I like playing support in other games as well.
Right.
I'm like, this is what I need in order for my team to survive and make it through. Because I don't want anybody to die. And, it's something that XCOM is going to break down on you, and it's going to make you quit the game, or just go shrug it off and just continue. Because that's the thing about the permadeath aspect that I like, is that in real life, once you're dead, you're dead. There's no resets or anything like that. So it made sense why they had something like that, especially in XCOM. And with Gears, yeah, they have that with just regular troops, but with the heroes, because they have to continue the story, you can't really kill them. It's just going to reset you. So it was a nice little, I would say it's definitely more of what is it called? A starter for somebody that, hasn't played these games, maybe wants to try it out. And if they do, or it catches their attention, then maybe they want to go to XCOM, because this is not as challenging as that. But if you don't know what you're doing still, then you'll be able to figure it out in a few missions or so.
Yeah, I think that might have been my problem, that I was rushing through the menu. So if you're listening and you can imagine this menu, so. Okay, of course you have these different support classes, right? You have your heavy, you've got your support, your medic, all these different classes. And each one of these people have their own passive abilities, but they also have their own skill tree. And on top of that, they also have armor. And these armors also give you upgrades. So the way that this menu is laid out, it's like, okay, you have to go into the guy's character. From there, you go into the inventory. From the inventory, you go into inventory classes, meaning like your different weapons, your different armor pieces, and all those have different categories. So like trying to like wean my way through it's like when you have too many windows open on your computer. That's how I felt. I was like, I cannot figure out, like, just trying to spec out my team was annoying. I was starting to find myself semi-frustrated, because then even looking at the skill tree too, it's like, well, what, I don't know whether or not I'm going to ever use this or not. Okay, I'm just going to assign all these skill points really quickly and just go up the tree, right? Like, not even put any thought to it. So I started just
you don't want to do that. No.
Yeah. And it's because I kind of got tired of literally going through the menu. Like I said, I think that this is a Gears game, but it's a huge departure. Like, go back and play like Gears 5, right? That game is like every second you are shooting a gun, you are running, you are getting a cutscene, you are like, it's just like boom, 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 boom. And this one does have good cutscenes, right? Like when you go to like perform a chainsaw kill, it does go down to the ground, it gets out of that isometric view, and then you get the close up of you cutting a chainsaw through some nasty looking locust guy, but then it goes and it shoots back up. So it's this super funny pacing thing that I'm having issues with. It's also this menu that I just find cumbersome that I'm having issues with. I jumped off.
I will give you the inventory management, the menus, the getting that done is a giant headache. The skill tree though, I'm happy on how they made that, because it's very simplistic. You just look at what you want to, you can plan, because the thing about these kind of games, you kind of have to plan out what you want to do. You can't really just throw yourself in like any regular Gears of War game.
Right.
You have to figure out how to make it work for you. And so, for example, on some of the few missions, there's that risk and reward kind of thing where this guy's about to go down. Do you want to get an execution, but keep this person, open in the field, and he'll take a lot of damage? And if you do that, every single character of yours will have an extra turn to be able to do extra damage. And so it just depends on how you play, your style that you're doing with this game.
Right.
The abilities, I'm happy in how it's done, because then you can figure out what you want to do. What was it? What are they called? The tanks. I love them.
Yeah.
They're one of my favorite. My favorite class on this one, just because they've saved me so many times. Them with a sniper always helps.
For sure.
It's one of these things that you have to try to predict what your enemies are going to do in the next turn.
Right.
Especially with what's happening. I know, I did one or two missions that I got really frustrated because I couldn't figure out how to beat it at a certain amount of time, because they give you your main missions and then they give you the optional missions. And I wasn't a big fan of them at the beginning, until I'm like, all right, I just need to figure out who would be the best person to use in this scenario and what I need to do in order to figure it out. And then just,
right.
That part of risk and reward was the part that was holding me back, because I always played more of a passive way. I let the enemies come to me.
Sure.
But with those missions, you actually have to just go and go for it. It just depends on what you need to do on the game itself.
Yeah, I completely ignored the optional objectives myself at one point. I did the first two, I think, and then after that I was like, and then I think, I looked it up, and because this was me playing, it was like last week, I want to say Friday or Saturday or something. But I remember going like, oh shit, I was like, I'm kind of enjoying this, but I'm also kind of not enjoying it. I was like, how long is this game? I looked it up. Like the average, this is a long game. This thing is like 40 to 50 hours long. This is
that's a turn-based game for you. This is small for a turn-based game, by the way.
I immediately went to IOBit uninstaller and uninstalled that thing off my PC. I was like, I I cannot do this for 50 hours. I was like, this is just not my jam, and I'm super proud of the development team, though. I mean, Splash Damage, the Coalition, they took a chance on a game franchise that everybody had always had really kind of high expectations for being like this third person, cover-based shooter, and made it very competent tactics game. I think it's doing really well too. I mean, obviously there's a lot of people buying a lot of games right now, but like you said, we both played it on Xbox Game Pass. So if you have that, there's no reason not to look at it. It is a huge download. I want to say it's how big was it again? I mean, God, I think it was like 50.
I think it was like 40 or 45
I was
gigs.
Going to say 40 to 50 gigs. Yeah, so it's a big download, but I think it's worth looking at. So that's what I've been playing. Is there anything else that you've been playing, Roberto?
I've been, like I said, I haven't been touching any FPSs right now. I've been dabbling in Streets of Rage 4, cool. But I barely just started that game. And again, that's another Game Pass game, which you can, I believe, play up to 4 people in couch co-op and then 2 people in online.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw it on there. I haven't downloaded it yet.
Pretty small download. It's 4.7 gigs.
Cool.
Yeah, and I like the music. The music's pretty cool. I've never played a Streets of Rage game, so it's my first experience with this. But yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. It's just just a beat 'em up style game. I think I've beaten like 2 stages and tried 2 of the different characters.
Cool. Well, Dantastic, what have you been playing, bud?
So, I got 3 things on my list right now.
Uh-oh. Let's get them.
Number 1, you already know what it is. I've been playing Final Fantasy 14 because I'm paying money for it, so I might as well get my money's worth. However, in playing Final Fantasy 14, I was going through some raids, and in these raids, they were based off of Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy 12. And the only reason why I played my next game is because of these raids from Ivalice. And that's how you actually pronounce it. It's Ivalice, not Ivalice or whatever. It's Ivalice. So we went in there and the music started playing, and it was from Final Fantasy Tactics, the battle music from some of the areas. So I went and fired up my PS3 and actually started playing Final Fantasy Tactics again. So you were playing a different tactics game than I was. And this tactics game is a classic. Final Fantasy Tactics, because you have the jobs. You've got your white mage and your summoners and your black mages and your thieves and your, chemists and like really weird things. And it is a very long game. If you just go, critical path, like I just do the story, it'll take you about 38 hours.
Wow.
If you're a completionist and you want to try to do everything, the minimum is about 83 hours.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And it's a tiny game. I mean, it came out on the PS1. It came out on the PS1, didn't it? 1997 is when it came out. And it was just one of the best games. It had awesome music. And speaking of music, like Roberto was talking about the music from Streets of Rage. Any Final Fantasy game is going to have amazing music. Like Nobuo Uematsu is one of those people that just makes amazing, things for video games. And Square Enix just knows how to find their composers for these musics, and when they remastered the music and put it into Final Fantasy 14, it just brought me back, and that's why I started playing Final Fantasy Tactics again.
That's cool.
And it starts off early, easy enough. You have a first couple of grids, and it teaches you what to do. Okay, you do this, you move, you attack, you move, you do your magic. You can see the turn order of who's going to go next, and bonuses if you do this and bonuses if you do that. And there's a little system there where your character gets knocked out, they turn into a crystal. If you don't raise them in time, then they're permanently gone. So there is a window for your character to be revived, kind of like them being on the brink of death, and if you don't reach them in time, then they die and they disappear forever. So I kind of liked that. If you really liked a character but then they just got ganked and you weren't able to raise them in time, then you lost them forever. even main story characters, except for your main character, Ramza, who you're playing. Such an amazing storyline, and a lot of the characters that were in Final Fantasy Tactics are actually in these storylines for the raids for Final Fantasy 14. So they did a good crossover. And then if you have not played Final Fantasy Tactics, and this is anybody out there, you should definitely try it. You can pick it up, I think, still on the PS3 PSN store as part of the PS1 Classics, and it should only be like $5.99. If not, it's like $10. You can get the PS1.
I wonder if it's on PC.
They re-released it on the DS too, right?
Yeah, it was also on the PSP for a while, and it was called The War of the Lions. So, I actually, you know what? You might be able to download it on your Vita if somebody has a Vita as well through the PlayStation Network. There's a lot of ways of obtaining it. Obviously, you can still play it on your original PlayStation 1 if you still have one that's functional. You know, you can emulate it, you know, which I do not really condone because I'd rather, you know, pay the developers some money, you know, instead of just pirating. Yeah, pick it up. It is an amazing game. It's got an amazing storyline. The music is awesome. And you know, it's old. You can tell the game is old, but it still holds up even now to play it. So then the other game that I was playing is actually not even a video game itself. It's more of a offline thing. I was playing Legendary card game, Marvel's Legendary card game.
Cool.
Oh, they have a digital version of
that? No, offline.
Oh, okay.
Physical, because I found an expansion that I didn't have. It was the Fear Itself expansion. And I have a lot of expansions, and one way that I track this always through apps. So even my board games I track through apps. With the Legendary Marvel Legendary expansion, there's an app called the Randomizer, so that you can randomize the characters that you can, you know, purchase. It's a deck building game, not really a board game, even though there is a board involved. You can randomize all of the different characters and the villains that you play throughout this entire playfield, and you can play by yourself, which during quarantine is actually quite fun because then I pretend like I'm two people and then I play and or three people or whatever, and I'm trying to defeat the villain. But yeah, I recently picked up the Fear Itself expansion for the Marvel Legendary deck building game, and yeah, it just adds another dimension, another layer upon the layers that were already, you know, built upon by all the other expansions that I picked up. And it's super fun, you know. Even if you're playing by yourself, it's always better to play with other people because then you can team up, or you know. And I mean, there probably is a way to, you know, play with somebody, you know, online. Oh, and there is an app for Legendary, but it's not the Marvel Legendary version. It's just the original Legendary game. So there is a Legendary, and it's not that one that you keep seeing everywhere where it's like a gem-based game and all this and that. This is actually like the board game Legendary. So there's two different games on the app stores called Legendary. You have to be careful which one you get.
Got it.
Yeah, look at the screenshots or something beforehand. If you find the one that kind of looks like cards and fantasy-based, then do that one. If you see the other one that looks more like war-based and weapons and gems, don't do it. That's not the right one. That's the one that's always advertising. Oh, the Legend 27, you know, kick my ass again. I don't know if you've ever seen those commercials, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much what I've been playing. Drinking a lot of Dr. Pepper, playing a lot of Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy 14, offline games. Yeah, lots of Dr. Pepper. Lots of Dr. Pepper. And the occasional, you know, tequila. So we're not counting May 5th as you know, anything that I've been playing recently because it's like, okay, whatever. I will get to Uncharted. Okay, I swear, Garrett, I will get to Uncharted.
Oh, somebody didn't do their homework.
I know. I'm actually not even going to respond. We're not even talking anymore until you play the Uncharted series. I'm just kidding. You do whatever you do, man. I'm not going to judge you. You play at whatever. I mean, you already downloaded them. You can play them whenever you want.
I did.
That's also going to be
I can play them.
Huge. It's going to be a huge undertaking because you're going to have to, I mean, if you're going to play through all 4, they're not that short. I mean, I think I think that at least some of them are at least, I say like 15 to 20 hours. So, I mean, 20 times 4. I mean, you're looking at least 100 hours, I would say. If you're talking about all 4 of them, for sure.
Right.
All right. Well,
yeah, for sure.
Is that it? Are you playing anything else?
Not really. Yeah, that's pretty much all I've been doing there. Just more board games and Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy 14, and the free play campaign is still going on for Final Fantasy 14. You get 8 days for free from the first day that you log in. There's also a friend referral program if anybody decides they want to play for the first time and they get a referral code from their friend. They both get special items, but the new player has to be subscribed for 3 months, 90 days, in order for both players to get those special rewards. But with so many perks and with so many friendly people and helpful people, I'm pretty sure 3 months will fly by super fast.
That's awesome.
That's it. Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, you're definitely trying to sell Garrett on
I'm trying to sell
Final
anybody
Fantasy.
because I want more friends. Anybody to play.
Yeah,
Garrett has a lot of time. I think he might be able to help you on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say we might be able to come to some sort of agreement. Like maybe you play the Uncharted. But then you'd be busy playing that while I'd want you to be playing with me on Final Fantasy. I'm not sure how we'll work this out, but we'll definitely get something together where you play the Uncharted series, I'll play Final Fantasy 14. I hope I love it. Like I said, my first experience with it was not great, but that was at its original launch, which we all know wasn't the greatest.
I remember that quest too.
Yeah.
I remember that quest that you were talking about last time.
Yeah. But anyway, let's jump into our topic of the show, which is handheld gaming. Handheld gaming versus console gaming, our likes or dislikes, what we prefer. I'm going to be honest. I have very little experience with handheld gaming. I am primarily either a PC or console gamer. I always have been. I have owned a couple consoles, but I really just kind of want to turn it over to Dan Tastic and Roberto, because you guys obviously have had a lot of different handheld consoles, and you've actually, got a lot more experience with it. So why don't you guys just take over? Talk to me about handheld versus couch gaming, what you like and dislike.
Roberto.
Well, I mean, so for me, me and my family always moved. I wouldn't say like we moved. We always lived in the same house, but when my parents weren't working or that kind of stuff, we would always be at somebody else's place or in like a ranch or that kind of stuff, where just so we can be out there in nature and that kind of thing. And so for me, I've always had a close thing with handheld gaming. And so, for me, since I can't be at home, they would never let me stay home by myself. I always had my Game Boy or, DS, depending on what year it was or that kind of thing, with me at all times. So for me, the handheld gaming was always a big thing. And this is mostly because of Nintendo. So Nintendo's always been doing all these different games that I've always played, be it Pokemon, be it, the Mega Man Battle Network games, be it
Tetris.
Tetris, yeah. Those would always be the games that I usually went for. Until, I started working in retail, that's when I actually bought my first actual console that I paid for myself, or paid it myself. And from there it transferred to home consoles just because more power, more detail, different experiences that I can have on those guys. But recently, I've been. I would say it's more of it's half and half now. It's more my computer and my Switch, just because I can do that now with my Switch again. I have to carry like a bag, but I normally have a bag anyways. So I just throw my Switch in there, and there's a game actually coming out soon, the Hatsune Miku Mega Mix, or Hatsune Miku Project Diva Mega Mix, that comes out next week. And you can bet that I'm going to have my Switch on me because I like playing those rhythm games with me at all times. So when I'm on my break and that kind of thing, I'll just play that to waste time at work, and then just plug it on my TV and start playing it there too.
That's awesome.
Well, that also goes into like what part of what I was going to talk about, which is the portability of handheld games compared to your console game where you're sitting in front of a couch. The Switch kind of bridges that gap, where you can sit there and play a game on your television, relax, kick it. Hey, all right. But there's a lot of times where a game is just so engaging that you want to take it with you. Look at with the Switch, you have Zelda Breath of the Wild. So many people were playing Breath of the Wild, and they probably still are. Pokemon, huge franchise. Everybody plays it. Do you know how long? Now, I love my handheld games as much as the next person, but do you know how long I waited to play a mainline Pokemon type game on my television?
I'm happy you said mainline game.
Because there have been exactly, because there have been a few like Pokemon Snap, for the N64. That's a Pokemon game, but it's not a mainline Pokemon game. There's been Pokemon
Shadow of Darkness, Coliseum,
and like all of these games from Pokemon that have come out on home consoles, but they were never one of the main storyline games, like introducing new Pokemon and taking your adventure and doing this and doing that. It's like, okay, cool. Now I don't know. For me, handheld gaming started when I was in high school back in 90 or something, and there was Tetris and there was the original Mario Brothers, and it was awesome because at the time the Nintendo regular console was the big thing. Okay, Super Mario Brothers, everybody was playing that. I think at the time Super Mario 2 had just come out when we finally got our Game Boy in our house. And the old Game Boy did not have a light. It ran on batteries that died really fast. And it was huge. And the cartridges were pretty small, which is fine. And they looked like miniature NES cartridges. And every Game Boy, from what I remember, always came with one game, and it was Tetris. Unless you got a special bundle that had like Mario Brothers or something. But every Game Boy came with Tetris.
My Game Boy, not to interrupt real quick, came with Super Mario Land, I believe is the Mario game that my Game Boy was packaged with. That's one of the only consoles I only ever owned. But anyway, I digress. Continue.
No. That's because that was one of the bundles. That was like the first time that I ever heard of, a handheld console coming with a bundle. Like, wait, it's not Tetris?
Yeah, and that might have been, for me, late 80s, maybe 1990, but I want to say it was late 80s.
Maybe. Yeah, the Game Boy was super popular. Yeah. Roberto makes an awesome point. You're out in public, somewhere, you're going about your normal day, and you have, your Game Boy with you, and you can just, you're waiting for somebody or you're in line at the DMV or whatever. You just, pull out your DS and, play a little bit of, Fire Emblem or, whatever it is. You pull out your Switch and start, catching some Pokemon, and even to kind of further the whole, handheld console, everybody has one on them right now. It's your cell phone.
We're going to go Blizzard on this?
You're holding your cell phone in your hand. What? No, you can play like Pokemon Go. You can play the new Harry Potter. What do they call that? The Harry Potter. It's like basically Pokemon Go, but it's a Harry Potter version of it. You can duel people with Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. You can download all kinds of weird ass games like Candy Crush, or you used to be able to get Flappy Bird. Like, even though they're silly games, they're still games.
Right.
What was I gonna say? I mean, like, just going back to that. So, you know, some of the places my family would always go to was Bodega Bay, and you know those giant rocks that were next to the beach, or you know the way towards the beaches in Bodega Bay.
Sure.
I would hide behind those rocks because I didn't want to deal with my family, and so, or you know, I would hide you know, in that area where they were, so I could just play, because you know they didn't want me to play games; they just want me to be out there and run and do all this kind of stuff. So you know, I would just be over there in those rocks and just play on my Game Boy.
Right. You're like, what is this outside nonsense sunshine? I want to play this game. I totally get it.
Pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though. You know, there are people that handheld, you know, games are not for them. You know, there's a lot of people that don't like to go out, or they may not be able to go out as much, you know, due to some kind of, inability to do so. You know, and then a home console. You know, maybe they just don't have the time, you know, while they're out, because they're a busy working person and they don't have the time to actually have a a handheld console with them. So then they come home and they unwind with a home console, PS4, Xbox, old, you know, Wii U or whatever it was, you know, Genesis back in the day, N64, Neo Geo, whatever. Excuse me. You know, you can do more with a home console than you can with a handheld console, because there's, you know, enough, there's more space for a bigger motherboard so that you can actually put more space so you can make better, you know, games. And, you know, case in point, would you really be able to play a game like, well, I guess you could, because they did make it, Uncharted. You know, we're going back to Uncharted. You know, you sit home, you want to immerse yourself into this. You know, I think the handheld games are more for those, like, okay, let's play real quick. You know, let's do this. You can stop it at any time. Whereas the home console games, you might want to sit down and invest a couple hours because you're sitting on your couch. You're not really doing anything, well, supposedly. And you want to immerse yourself into this storyline, like kind of like watching a, you know, TV, Netflix, you know, Hulu, whatever. You know, Uncharted is really good for that. They did make it for the Vita.
Yeah, so you're talking about
Golden Abyss.
Yeah, Golden Abyss, and that is my very little to no knowledge on handheld consoles, or I should say just my experience with it. I had that Game Boy, like I said. I was gifted the Game Boy back in like the late 80s or 90s, but it was a gift. I don't remember going into a Toys R Us and specifically asking for that. I think my parents just realized, oh, this kid loves his Atari. This kid loves his Nintendo Entertainment System. He's going to obviously love this handheld thing. And I do remember bringing it to school and getting in trouble for it. And I do believe the only two games I ever really owned for it was the Super Mario Land and Tetris. And Super Mario Land was garbage. I'm going to say that now. Throw your shade towards me. But
wait. So, quick question: Super Mario Land, is that the one where Warrior is the bad guy?
Bro, yes. And
dude, that game is amazing. You're wrong.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with you about Super Mario Land. But to me, I remember playing that game going like, what is this hot garbage? Especially like after playing, you know, regular Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo. It was just like, I'm like, there's no color here because it was all those different kinds of shades of gray. I remember the Game Boy itself just feeling, I mean, especially for the time for little Garrett, you know, because in the late 80s, I would have been, you know, I was born in 82. So you're talking, I was what, 7, 8, something like that. I remember the Game Boy just being freaking heavy. I remember holding it and being like, what is this brick that I am holding? Because it was like the size of a brick. And whenever you played it outside, because the brightness on the little panel on it was really low, you could barely see anything. It was just not, that was my first experience with handheld. So maybe that's kind of like some of the reasons. But I did get really hooked on Tetris. That was my first introduction to Tetris, like it was for a lot of people. And like Tetris hooked me. Like that was the one game I did play on there, and I played it a lot. And like I can't even remember what happened to that Game Boy, but it's gone now. And honestly, I didn't own another handheld gaming console till the PlayStation Vita, and I bought it on a whim. I bought it just because, before my son was born, I had a lot of extra, disposable income. And I was like, I was really big into the PlayStation 4 ecosystem. This was like 4 or 5 years, I'd say, into the life cycle, maybe even less. No, because this was quite a few years ago. Because, the PlayStation 4's been around for how long now?
Quite a while.
Yeah, 2015.
2015. So I must have picked up the Vita in 2013. Or something like that. And I picked up 2 games. One of them was the Uncharted Golden Abyss, and that was actually pretty well done. Like, I gotta say, like, it's obviously, it's not up there. I would say that it's better than, even Drake's Fortune, the first actual, Uncharted, straight series. But it was good enough. It had, the third person shooting. It had all the puzzles. It had Nathan climbing and going through a jungle, and it looked great for being a Vita. And then I also got Resistance, Rise of Man, or Fall of Man. Maybe it's Fall of Man. But that was just one of the, Resistance series, first-person shooters. And it was fine. And what's funny? It's just, I think it's my lifestyle. Because the Vita was a great system. Everything that I was able to download for it, because at the time, I would subscribe to, PlayStation service, and you'd always get these Vita games. And so I'd always download them. So I had a bunch of stuff on the Vita that was free. I had a huge library. Mm-hmm. Gravity Rush, I want to say, was a really good game that I fell into a hole with. That's that one where it's kind of anime-ish and you're flying through the air and there's a bunch of cats. That's pretty much what I remember about Gravity Rush. But anyway, it was a great console and I enjoyed it. Funny note, Roberto and I, where we work, I used to bring my Vita into work because I would work the closing shift, which would be 1:30 to 10. Major Sales used to have a 10 o'clock shift, believe it or not. Like we would close the door at 8:30, and then I'd have to stay around till 10. And I would bring my Vita into work.
Why?
And don't ask me.
Now I want to know why.
This was years and years ago. This is back. And I would bring my.
What did you have to do?
I would play my Vita. That's what I'm getting at. I would literally bring my Vita to work, and I would whip it out. I'd have it in my back pocket because I have huge pockets because I'm a cargo pants guy, and whip it out, and I would just start playing it. And I did this for months. I finished Golden Abyss at work. and one day I finally got popped. I got caught by one of my supervisors, who's actually one of my really good friends now. He's a manager now. I don't want to say his name, but for his privacy. But when he comes around the corner and I'm playing my Vita, and he's like, "Garrett, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "What does it look like I'm doing? And please don't talk to me. I need to get to a safe point." And he was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I'm like, "Okay, listen. Okay, I know what this looks like, and it's exactly what you think it is. And so you could just go ahead and do whatever you're going to do." I never got written up or anything for it. Never got any sort of in trouble or whatever. I figured at this point, what am I going to do? Say I'm looking at a phone? This is obviously not a phone. It's obviously like a little handheld gaming system here. But it took a month for me to finally get caught. I literally did that for 3 months. Because I always had the closing shift. And so it was just me playing video games at work. Long story short, I feel like the handheld gaming console is great if you have to commute, right? Like if I was taking the BART every day, you bet your ass I would have a ton of different handheld gaming consoles. If I lived in a lifestyle that was suited around handheld gaming, I think I would. But, for me being, a father now with a 19-month-old that's running around, when I do get free time, I do want a bigger, grander experience. But I totally understand, obviously, the handheld gaming market. Let me ask you another question before we move on. But, do you think that the handheld gaming market actually might be in trouble now, just to the fact that none of us are supposed to be going outside? Do you think that this will actually have an effect?
No.
Do you think that...
No.
Not at all.
No, because they keep making really awesome games.
Obviously...
Yeah. At first, when it comes to when it comes to portable games, For me, the thing about it was always how limited it could be when it comes to power and such.
Sure.
But that kind of changed with the Vita when it first released.
Right.
The first and second model of the Vita that were using, really good screens, a strong processor. And at first when I had a Vita, I'm like, what's the big deal? It's a very expensive device. Some games look better, but I don't see a big appeal on it until I got games like Killzone Mercenaries, and that one, the game was smooth. The game looked really good, and it didn't really have a story. You're pretty much a mercenary, and each level you had to complete specific goals, and there was the multiplayer aspect, which was great too. But it was one of those games that it took me until getting this game or getting that game that I saw potential that these portable games can have a lot more juice. They depend. It just varies on getting the right equipment to be able to play them, to have these experiences outside.
Yeah.
And then from there, there was Persona 4 Golden Edition, and that game just when you turn it on and you had the night, you had one of the first or second versions of the Vita, which had the best screen at that time.
Oh yeah.
It was just gorgeous. I upgraded to like the Slim, and unfortunately with the Slim they lowered down because they were trying to drop the price on them. They dropped the quality on the screen itself.
Yeah, the first one was an OLED, right?
I got very sad.
Dude, that's the one I had. I had the OLED screen. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it just depended on the equipment that you were able to use in order to play these games. Because there's very good, examples of when it comes to these games. For me, it was Killzone Mercenaries that showed me that FPSs can play on this. Also on the Vita, Borderlands 2 showed that no, you can't play this kind of game on as a portable game. Because let me tell you, that was an atrocious.
I own that as well because they bundled it with the Vita. That was the bundle I bought.
Yeah, it was,
and I remember it was terrible.
It was awful. I was so excited. Me and my friends that were just playing so much of that game were like, dude, we have a Vita. Let's get this game. We'll play online. We have everything already. We could move our character to this. We'll destroy. And we're just like, this is.
I remember they were only able to have like one enemy on the screen at a time. Is that correct? I remember they were going like, wait a minute, isn't there usually like a whole herd of enemies in here? And there'd only be like one enemy and it just controlled all janky. It was not great.
The frame rate was bad. Yeah, no, it was a really bad port.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because some ports were amazing and some ports were weird. Like with the Vita, there was a game called Dragon's Crown.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that game as a handheld game. When you tried to do your cross save and play it on the PS4, PS3, it didn't. It looked amazing on your television because it was huge, but it was a handheld game on your television, and it's like, that's like trying to play, Candy Crush on your TV.
Yeah.
Like it's not worth it. Like why? I don't want to play a gem matching game on it. Yeah, it was handheld games are some of them are good for handhelds and some of them are good.
Another example I want to bring up is that Project Diva game that I was talking about. I originally got it on the PlayStation 4 and I liked it, but when I played it on the Vita, I could not put that game down. I had my headphones on. It felt so good. Just looking at the game while playing it, pressing the buttons. It was originally on the PSP, right? It was originally a PSP game, the full franchise. And so, it was back home in that system, just a beefier system. And, I kind of, that's the one regret that I have right now is selling my Vita just for that game. That's what I got into. And then, because after I sold it, they released a new version on the PS4, or two different versions, and then there's a new one coming out on the Switch next week. So I'm excited again that I'll be able to take this game out in the world again.
Well, right, that's amazing. See, and then there are certain other games that you can only play on a handheld, like because the mechanics of the game itself are designed to be on a handheld.
Yeah.
And the perfect example of this is from back on the DS, the original DS, even before the 3DS came out. It was called The World Ends With You.
Oh yeah.
That game had touch mechanics and it had controller mechanics at the same time. You had to watch and control two different characters at the exact same time during battle, one of which is on the top screen where you control them using the button press sequences and the like the D-pad and the ABXY, where the character on the bottom screen was a touch screen character and you had to swipe or tap or make circles or do designs while you were still controlling the other person on top. And you had to have them both defeat the enemies on the screen almost simultaneously in order for you to progress out of that fight. The soundtrack for that game is amazing, again, because it's a Square Enix game. Sorry, I don't know what it is about Square games, but the music is just so awesome. And I got the soundtrack for this game from a handheld game because it was that good.
Awesome.
And yeah, so they redid the World Ends With You. Did they redo it on the Switch?
Yeah, they re-released it on the Switch.
I tried playing it. Nope, you can't do it.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but mixed things on that game. Mostly bad, but mixed for sure.
Exactly, but you can't do it. The original game was amazing because you had the two screens, and that won't translate into a console. You can't play it on the PS4 or PS2 or anything because what are you going to touch? Yeah, you could probably use the touchpad on a PS4, but that thing is it's unreliable at best. And one of the things that I liked about the Vita was that there was a touchpad in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And in playing games like Uncharted or even Final Fantasy X, when they remastered that for the Vita, you could use the touchpad in the back, and it was cool because it's like it knew what you were doing. And you can touch the front, and so it had a touch screen and a touch back.
It's cool.
That's just a lot of different functionality that you can do on a handheld versus the console.
Absolutely. Well, that was a great discussion about handheld gaming. Does anybody else anything else to add to that?
No, just keep making really awesome games. Ultimate Alliance is good on it.
Cool. Yeah.
Do you want to add anything to home consoles, Garrett?
Home consoles are great for, when, like I said, if you have the time and you want to sit down and relax, have a cinematic experience, or if you just want to kick somebody's ass and play Mortal Kombat.
Oh, speaking of which, do you see the trailer?
No, not yet.
Oh man,
is it good?
What did you think of Mortal Kombat 11's story?
It was all right.
Like for me, it was like this, for Mortal Kombat, over the top, ridiculous, universes in peril kind of thing. Well, you're continuing that story. And Shang Tsung is pretty much like, I wouldn't say the main character, but he is a main character in this story. And so Shiva's coming in. Some of the names. Shiva. Sindel's already been in it though. She's but she's going to be in the story as well. So it's going to be what's his name? Nighthawk. Thank you.
Nighthawk.
Yeah.
I don't remember. You know what? Honestly, the only reason why people want to play Mortal Kombat is for the fatalities, the brutalities.
But here we go. This is where I was going to go. They also announced RoboCop is going to be coming out on this expansion. They are bringing back environmental fatalities and friendships.
Oh yes, okay, that's worth it there. Friendship. Yeah. Okay. They really need to bring back the babalities.
Yeah.
Right.
If that's the case.
That was when Mortal Kombat was at
it was all about the babalities.
Sure. That's great.
Oh man. I think they went overboard though because they had so many different things that you could do.
True.
There was friendship, there was babality, there was brutality, there was fatality, there was so many alities, you know. It was just see, that's a game that I would rather play on a console rather than a handheld, because it's rage inducing. If you get pissed off at a game in Mortal Kombat because people just keep kicking your ass, you might throw your handheld console out, and that's $300 down the drain.
Okay, so it's going to be $40 when it comes out, which is going to be the release. When is it going to come out? That's not right. It says May 6th. That can't be right.
That's tomorrow. That's today.
That's today. I don't think that's right. It can't be right. I thought it was going to be the 26th or something like that. But it's coming.
No way that can't be right.
Shiva, Fujin, and RoboCop are coming out. And another story, and then 3 new skin packs that will be released over in.
I hope the RoboCop thing is like the thing that happens in the film, and I'm going to spoil this, where he shoots that guy in the dick. That should be one of the fatalities.
Yep.
just boom,
right.
Shoots him right in the crotch. That'd be hilarious. All right.
Right.
I think we got to wrap this up because I am absolutely starving. I need to go eat some food. Plus, my wife needs some help. So that was a podcast. I really appreciate you guys listening. If you've made it this far, please feel free to like, share, subscribe. We're available on all the different podcast services out there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, YouTube, and everything else under the sun. So feel free to follow us on all those different services. It really means a lot, and it helps us out. Thank you very much, and we love you.
Bye.
Bye.